I'm Lisa Stone, and you're listening to Parenting Aces. Happy New Year, happy new decade, and welcome to Season 9 of the Parenting Aces Podcast. I can't believe it. When we started this podcast in 2012, I had no idea that it would still be going in 2020. It's just mind-boggling to me. So thank you all so much for continuing to support the podcast and Parenting Aces. We couldn't do it without you. Over the years, I have had the opportunity to talk to so many incredible people and learn from them and share that knowledge with all of you. And I'm just thrilled that we're still going strong and still have an audience that's interested in learning more and doing better as tennis parents. So again, thank you so much for continuing to support us. I also want to give a shout out to my son, Morgan Stone, for our new intro and outro music this season. And he loves when I text him and say, hey, it's time for new music. What you got for me? So I'm very grateful to him for that. And I also want to just say, starting this season by having Danielle Lao on the podcast is really exciting for me. Danielle has done the podcast before, and you'll know she was a top junior. She had an incredible college career at USC. And she graduated in 2013 and has been out on tour ever since, making waves out there. And in this episode, she reflects on her 2019 season and talks a little bit about the quote-unquote off-season in professional tennis and how she is planning to spend it, or was planning to spend it. We did record this before the end of the year, so take that into account when you're listening. But she also talks a little bit about what she has planned for 2020 and what she's hoping to accomplish. So I hope you find that useful. I find her approach to tennis to be so thoughtful and so logical and so balanced, and would love it if you would share this episode with your junior players, because I feel like they have so much to learn from her wisdom. So with that in mind, sit back, relax, and enjoy Season 9, Episode 1 of the Parenting Aces Podcast. Danielle Lao, thanks so much for coming back on the Parenting Aces Podcast. I'm so thrilled to get the chance to chat with you again.
No, thanks for having me. I have fun on our chats.
Well, me too. And I have fun reading your social media posts and your blogs. And I always learn something when I talk to you. And I feel like your attitude towards your tennis is so healthy, and it's one that needs to be shared. So I appreciate you taking time out of your preseason.
Oh, thanks. I hope it's healthy. I work at it every day, but yeah, I try.
Well, so right now we're recording this. It's early December. This probably isn't going to air until January or maybe early February. But I really want to talk about what the off season looks like for a professional tennis player, because, you know, we know tennis is a year-round sport, and certainly in the juniors, you know, it doesn't ever stop unless you schedule a break. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, transitioning from juniors to college to professional, how have you kind of built in these training blocks and these rest periods so that you can stay somewhat healthy and compete when you need to?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it really depends on the player. Some are finishing up the season, maybe a little broken and a little hurt, maybe also a little mentally tired. I think every year you're on tour, you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself, how you handled the off season / preseason. Like, did it serve you? Did it burn you out? Did you feel like you didn't have enough time to put the work in? And I've done it a few different ways. I normally end my year kind of late because I'm, hustling for points for Aussie Open, and just in the past couple of years, I've been able to make the cut, which is great. Last year, I finished off the year a little banged up. physically and mentally. I was tired too. I was tired from the competition, so I knew I needed to take some time off, maybe a week and a half from tennis. But it took me all of like 3 or 4 days to get a little antsy and to get back in the gym, just because I think as professional athletes, you're just used to a routine. At least for me, I like just getting a sweat in and staying in decent shape so that I don't lose too much when I start back at 100%. But this year was a little different. I finished off the year, but I felt pretty fresh actually. I felt physically healthy. Mentally, I just felt like getting after it. And the day after I finished my last tennis match, I went running. I went to the gym. I've been putting in some hard yards in terms of the cross training. I've been laying off the tennis a little bit because you don't want to burn yourself out on the court. You want to be excited when you're on court because, mentally, if you don't have any enthusiasm on the court, I think that's a recipe for disaster to start the year. But I've always been someone that likes to exercise, to work out, to be active. So this year I'm just going to try to use that to my advantage and get after it as long as I feel healthy and I feel like I want to do it. And I haven't really felt tired yet, so I'm just going at it day by day and trying to strengthen certain parts of my body and to build my fitness up.
What does cross training look like for you specifically? What are you doing?
Well, I do a little bit of running. Some longer runs, some interval runs, and some shorter, higher tempo runs. And the days I'm not running, I go into the gym and do some intervals on the bike and some weights. So yeah, just pretty much building the body to withstand the pounding and the stress that you need to handle and take on the tennis court. So I guess like for other people, it'd be different. Depends probably on your body type, what you feel like you lack on the court. But yeah, for me, I think a huge thing I've been focusing on is a little bit on my upper body strength. Since earlier in the year, my elbow kind of broke down on me. I had a little tendonitis in there, and I think it's just a lack of strength in the supporting muscles around it. So just been really working on that and focused on that.
How did you figure out what specifically you needed to do? Are you working with a physical trainer or do you have a physical therapist that helps you out?
So for me, I have a massage therapist that's also a bodybuilder. I work with him like in terms of getting my aches and pains out, and he assesses my body to see where it's at. And he also gives me an idea on like what he thinks in terms of when he assesses me, like what's breaking down and such, what exercises to do. I don't really have a physical trainer, but my knowledge over the years has just been, it's all been stuff collected from college, from things you see on tour, and also just knowing your body too, knowing what you need. And a lot of it, I know we want to be as efficient as possible, but a lot of it's trial and error at the same time. You know, you can go after a certain like strength and conditioning program, but you can't really reap the rewards until maybe a month or so later to see if it actually works out for you. Did it hurt you? Did it make you slower? Did it make you stronger? So it's kind of a trial and error thing. And also you have to be patient with it too. So you can't go out, do a certain type of workout today and expect to see some sort of results tomorrow. It's you got to like go at it for a little bit and a certain amount of time and be patient with what it'll give you and just like assess afterwards. So I think it's a matter of time and just an openness to do whatever it takes to train your body properly.
Do the players talk to each other about this stuff? Like, hey, I've been feeling this little ache in my elbow, Have you ever had anything like that? What'd you do for it?
For me, I haven't really had any conversations with any other players on tour. talking about that, I kind of get the feeling that maybe we don't want to share each other's injuries or, we probably don't share, our health too much with each other, especially if we're competing against each other. It's tough to say. I mean, sometimes you have a casual conversation in terms of like, oh yeah, my trainer's putting me through this and it didn't work, and now we're trying this, but nothing really in detail. And I, for me at least, I don't see it too often.
Do you think that's a good thing, or do you wish it were different?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing because everyone's body is a little bit different. Do I wish it were different? Not really. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to feel like I need to share also, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I get the competitive edge and, I understand that, but I also, I have talked to Noah Rubin quite a bit about Behind the Racket. And, I know one of the things he's trying to do is kind of shed some light on some of the issues more on the mental side that players have. But I feel like, it's kind of a similar thing with the physical stuff. Like, y'all are out there alone a lot of the year. And I mean, if something's bugging you in your body, it's got to be a little frustrating, that you're out there on your own and, I've got to figure out how to fix this. And I really need to play this tournament next week, but this hurts. And I'm not sure if I can play or if I'm going to do more damage, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, I will say that my former teammates and I, maybe we share a little bit on our aches and pains, but that's because we're quite close, and I always want to see them do well. So I'll probably feel a little bit more open to that. But it's tough to share the aches and pains side too. If I were to be like devil's advocate, if someone came up to me and told me that, I had this like elbow pain and whatnot, I would actually be, because I'm not a professional like strength and conditioning or a PT, I'm not certified in that, I would be a little scared to advise them actually, just because
sure.
I don't want them to try something and then it makes it worse, and then they're like, oh, like they have it out for me now because I gave them like bad advice, and it's
or you're playing them next week, and what can
and it's their profession too, so
sure.
It's tough, and we also have physios on the road too, like the WTA has a bunch of trainers available, the ITF too, so I guess you can get assessed there. So
and that was my
help on the road. But
right. That was my next question. If like your massage therapist travels with you, because that gets expensive and it's tough, but yet at the same time, your body is your livelihood, and so you need to take care of it properly. And so, I wasn't suggesting that y'all should give medical advice to each other. I was just thinking about it in terms of, no, I worked with this person and they were really able to help me, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else does your off season look like? I mean, are you able to take time and be with your family? I know that's really important to you, or hang out with friends, because during season, you're, as we all know, you are on the road traveling constantly.
Yeah, the off season is definitely a great time to catch up with everyone. In the past 7 days, I've thrown a bridal shower, a Thanksgiving, and a Friendsgiving, and I'm just exhausted from from socializing and cooking, but it's almost like I feel like I have a limited amount of time during the off season too, and I just want to like get it all in, and in 1 week I want to squeeze everything in, and it's tough, but it's definitely worth it. I was at Thanksgiving, this past week, and seeing my cousins, my aunts, and my uncles. It was really nice. I think it was the first big family gathering I've been to all year, and my nieces are getting so big. It's like they look like a different person every time I see them. But yeah, so it's good to be in one place for this amount of time in order to make space for the people at home and make time for them. And yeah, I'm really grateful for this downtime.
Yeah. And I mean, the off season in tennis isn't really that long, right? I mean, it's a few weeks, and then you're regrouping and getting ready for the Australian swing or New Zealand or wherever y'all start now. I mean, there's just not that many weeks that you have off. So at what point do you try to start getting ready for the lead up tournaments to the Australian Open? Because not only do you have to travel a long distance to get down there, but the weather down there is so extremely different from the weather here.
The winter here.
Yeah. So can you talk about prepping for that and what you do and how long you give yourself for that?
Well, this year I've already started training just because I felt like it, and I felt like getting after it. But normally I think like in terms of like ramping up your tennis and your match play, I think mid-December, maybe second, third week of December, like everyone starts to hit it pretty hard. And then everyone normally leaves maybe Christmas Eve for the start of the warm-up tournaments. So yeah, and it also really depends when you end your season. Some girls who are ranked a little higher, they ended their season in October. So They had a little bit more downtime, and for me, I ended it at the beginning of November. And keep in mind that like whatever downtime you have, if you're taking like full time off from any physical activity, you're also losing a little fitness when you're doing it too. So you have to manage. If you take like full time off, you have to manage time to get back into shape to where you were, and also you need to leave time to improve too, because that is what the off season is for. You wanna start off. I don't think you'll see a tennis player within the top 200 saying that they want to be exactly where they were last year. They want to improve in the off season. So I think it's a case by case basis for me. Since I ended the season a little later, I just started to get after it already. I'll probably start ramping up the tennis in the next week or so. And right now, just working on my fitness. I'm sure everyone's got kind of a different plan, but that's my plan of attack right now.
And how do you get your body ready to handle the extreme heat?
You'll laugh at me, but go to the sauna.
No, I think that's smart.
Yeah,
so, how long do you sit in there?
That is a workout for me. Normally like maybe 20 minutes.
Wow.
And see if you could put in there and withstand that extreme heat. I think, California is not going to get very hot within the next month or so. So yeah, just going into the sauna for me, that I look at that as some sort of heat training. You got to train your breathing and make sure your body is not completely surprised when it sees like the Australian weather.
Right. And I know a lot of the American players head down to Lake Nona in the off season to train. You're based on the West Coast. Yeah. It's where you grew up. And will you go down to Florida too before you head down to Australia?
I will. I'm going for a training week I'm leaving on the 8th for a training week there. And for some fitness testing. I've never been down there, so it'll be a cool experience for me. So I'll go down there for a week and then come back for the holidays or whatever's left of it.
Yeah. And the heat and humidity down in Orlando can be intense. I don't know how intense it'll be in December. Certainly not as intense as what you're going to face in Melbourne and Auckland and wherever else you're playing lead-up events. But, I watch the Australian Open every year, and I watch players, suffer from the conditions there. And I know the tournament every year is making accommodations and providing ice towels and longer breaks between sets and yada, yada, yada. But if you're not ready, and if you're coming from wintertime in the States to that, I mean, it can totally throw you off your game. I mean, figuratively and literally.
Yeah. No, it definitely, that is part of the challenge of going to Australia. That one is like the time difference. I think the weather, that's a huge challenge. The next one it's the travel to get there, and then the time difference. Those three things are factors that us Americans we need to take into account, because it is a long flight down there.
Yeah.
And for me, the jet lag isn't too bad. I actually struggle more on the way back, but I do hear from other players that they struggle with the jet lag going there. So those three things.
Have you found, as you continue to play, that travel has just become kind of something you don't even have to think about anymore, or does the stress of travel still impact you?
No, for me, I just try to make the most of it. I actually enjoy it. My time alone on the plane, where there's no one to call me, no one to text me. It's quite nice. I think it's just really how you approach it. And with every trip, you get more efficient at it. So yeah, it definitely is part of the job. But I think we're all pretty used to it. And the part that's maybe a little tougher is when you're away from home for a long amount of time. But the actual traveling itself, no big deal. Maybe it's stressful to find cost-efficient flights, or whether you want to use points or not. But the actual active traveling, it's okay for me. If you have delays, you have delays. If long sitting a long time on the flight, not a big deal.
And what about acclimating to hotels and finding food that suits your needs? Because, again, your body is your most important tool in this sport, and you've got to fuel it properly.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think as a professional athlete, you need to understand the balance of being flexible but also getting what you want and what you need. I think when you start to travel to certain places for multiple times, like you're going to Australia, you kind of, the second, third time there, you kind of know what it can offer you and what you're going to get there. Same thing. I know some people struggle going to Asia a little bit, but you just know what you're going to get. And sometimes you need to bring certain supplements or certain snacks and foods to help you out at the same time. For me, I normally bring like oatmeal and peanut butter and my picky bars to keep things consistent for me. And also hydration's important. That I can't compromise with. So you just know like there are certain things you need to bring from home that you can't compromise. And also you can also think of adjusting your diet to get used to eating things that you could find in every country, like eggs and bread, which is like you could find it in any country. And for me, like that's like my pre-game morning breakfast. And I just get used to performing off of that. So wherever I go, I can find it. I understand everyone's got different dietary restrictions. But yeah, I try to, manage it however I can, try to make it simple, but also, I don't want to be so stressed out going somewhere and worried that I'm not going to get avocado toast or something. Like I need to be able to find a routine that's sustainable.
Well, and I think that's really tricky, especially for tennis players who tend to be very routine based, right? I mean, that's, you develop pre-point routines, pre-serve routines, between point routines, changeover routines, all these things. And so to then have to find a way to tolerate things that are outside your routine when you're traveling to different places is challenging.
Yeah, it's tough, but I joke around with my family. I could survive off of bread, eggs, my protein powder, and peanut butter, all like for a few weeks at a time. So in most cases, I can either bring all of that or find some eggs wherever I'm going. So, yeah, keeping it simple, but yeah, obviously maybe someone else needs more than that. But for me, I've at least narrowed it down to that, and it's taken some time to kind of figure it out. You just experience, and you just experiment, and new experiences kind of like teach you like how to be more savvy on the road. But yeah, it's definitely tough.
Well, that leads me to my next question for you, which is if you could go back and talk to Danielle Lao, recent USC graduate, just going out on the road as a professional tennis player, what advice would you give to that Danielle?
Oof, a lot. I would tell her that the professional tour is going to push you to do things that are very far out of your comfort zone, and a lot of it is going to be unlearning what you've learned in the past to make you successful.
Such as? Can you give an example?
I would say, like, for example, coming out of college, I was taught to do fitness a certain way, and it took a while for me to have and because I really believed in all my strength and conditioning at USC and such, I thought I was gonna live and die by that routine, and but I just felt that my fitness wasn't improving, and I needed to find a way to level up a little bit in order to compete at the next level. And I just needed to have an open mind to maybe longer runs, more endurance runs, versus like when I was in school, I was taught a lot of intervals, a lot of sprints only. So that's like an example. And so although the fitness and the strength and conditioning at school, it helped me to get where I was coming out of college. It helped me to have a great college career. There's something that I needed to do even more differently after that. And I think at that point, like, to understand that whatever it took to get you here may not necessarily take you or like allow you to get there where you want to be. Like that's tough. That's tough to digest sometimes, especially like when you had a great collegiate career. Or you had a successful one, you're just like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to do it a little bit better. But I think at a certain point, if you want to play at the highest level, you got to be open to certain changes that may even contradict whatever you were doing in the past.
Right. And I mean, did you find that same thing happen when you transitioned from juniors to college? Do you remember?
I would say yes. I would say that I think coming from the juniors, maybe I was a little bit more fragile mentally. You know, your parents protect you and want to protect your ego and whatnot. They want to build you up to have this confidence that you're a great player. And that's great to like nurture a young tennis player, because that's what makes them above average, to believe that they're special. And I think like going into college, one thing I also had to learn was that when you're when you're out there and you're playing and it's all about competing and like really just spilling your guts out on the court, like anyone can beat anybody. And that's a little tougher to digest like at that age, but if you kind of can see what I'm saying, like you had to like unlearn what made you great in the juniors, and you had to change it around in order to compete in a dual match and to compete at the highest collegiate level. And I think, there's a lot of different shifts that you see in certain parts of your life. But if I were to think of one that definitely sticks out to me, maybe in the juniors, I felt I like took pride in maybe certain fancy shots I could hit. I don't know, maybe like unique plays, creative plays, but like in college I needed to kind of reel it in and just become tough and become super disciplined, especially to win like dual matches that really mattered. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's all part and parcel of transitioning from one aspect of the game to the next and moving up, from juniors to college to professional. And I'm curious how you handled transitioning from college where you were winning a lot to professional tennis where maybe you weren't winning as much and having to deal with the emotional strain of that.
It definitely is. It was definitely an adjustment. And
did you expect that? Did you know that was coming?
I did, actually, because before I went into college, I had this period of time where I played some challengers, and I went 6 months without winning a match. And that was a really tough time. And I went 6 months without winning a match, and I went to USC, and I played my first qualifying match at All Americans. I don't even know if it was pre-qualifying or qualifying, but anyways, I played my first match, and I was so nervous because I was playing in front of my coach, and I hadn't won a match in half a year, and gosh, but like to get that first win, it felt like a huge weight off my back. And because I had that experience, and I knew that this is totally a thing, like the losing streak is totally a thing going onto the professional tour. Like I knew like it happens, and like it happened to me when I was 16, 17 years old. So I was prepared for it, but also it also feels different when it's your livelihood too, and you're just like you just want all the more you want to win so bad because this is all you do. Right. And it's definitely tough to deal with, like to come from being the top of the NCAA field, and you're winning 90% of your matches, and to get on tour and you're losing first round for 2-3 weeks in a row, and that's really tough to swallow. But if girls coming out of college can be prepared for that, I think they're in a good place. But I don't know if you can even be prepared for that, because it's something most people have never experienced before, especially like up until that part of their career. I think for me, I just had a unique experience because I had that period where I did play some challengers.
Do you think there's a way to get ready for that? I mean, like you said, you kind of, I'm sure when you were in the midst of that 6-month losing streak, you didn't look at it as a gift, but in hindsight, you now realize, that prepared you for the next step. So, maybe it was a gift in disguise. But for the people that don't have that experience, either because they're not playing higher level events in their junior careers or whatever reason, or they're just that good that they don't lose. Mentally, how did you get past that? And again, if current Danielle could talk to, first year professional Danielle, what would you say to her to help her kind of manage that better?
Oof. That's tough. Like, I think it really is tough to tell somebody, be prepared for this, because you're not going to really know what it's going to feel like until it happens. I guess I could warn younger Danielle, like, hey, like, there's going to be some losing streaks, like, and in 2019, you're going to go from January to March and not win a match, and you're going to be stressed out of your mind because you're in this position to up your ranking, but you can't, because you feel like you have a whole bunch of weight on your shoulders. I wish I could warn her about that, but I think until you go through it, you don't really know. And like this year, beginning of the year, like with every loss that I had, it was like, gosh, I got to work harder. And the more you put into it, the more pressure you put on yourself. And then when it comes to competition, all of a sudden you just can't play because it's like too much, or you can't let yourself play freely because it's too much. And it's really tough to prepare someone for that. I mean, I can articulate it now because it's happened to me, but even if I articulated this to younger Danielle, I don't know if she would understand it, because she's got to go through it, and it's all growing pains. And I think, if maybe I'll find a better way to communicate it at a later date. But right now, I don't know if I can imagine younger Danielle understanding that, other than, warning her. But like, will she fully understand? I don't think so. And yeah, it's definitely just like a process everyone has to go through.
How did you get through it this year?
I think I had to work on my mental game a little bit, and every day you just focus on showing up and giving your best. And at some point when the results aren't showing, your back just feels like it's against the wall, and then all of a sudden you get into this zone where you have nothing to lose anymore, and you just let it happen, right? And you just let yourself play, and then and through all the mental work, you got to revisit, like, why do you play this game, and what's that feeling you feel when you are playing well. And it's probably got a little bit of fearlessness to it. It's got a little bit of like relentlessness, attached to it, and also like, a carefree feeling of not being attached to the results and just playing just to be out there, like playing for the heck of it because it's a game and you're good at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, it's tough to revisit that part. When things aren't going well, you forget like what it felt like to win. It's amazing. For as long as I've been playing tennis, like there are times in the year where you're like, gosh, I like forgot how to win, or like I forgot what it felt like when I forgot what it felt like when tennis felt good, or when it felt enjoyable, because you're so wrapped up in just getting from point A to point B. You're wrapped up in building your ranking. Like all of a sudden the process gets thrown out the window. And like the moments in between, like the little spaces of trying to focus on your results and like trying to be like goal oriented all the time, like you start to focus on the future too much, or the past, and you're not here in the present. And it's tough, because like all you can do when things aren't going well is try to stay in the present, but what your mind wants to do is think about, the future, or like critique yourself of the past so that you can get to the future. And it's a tough balance to find. But yeah, just like trying to work at it every day, eventually you get out of the rut. But yeah, it's a tough place to be.
When you said you were working on the mental side of your game, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. What are you specifically doing to work on it?
I guess like I have a couple of rituals in a day that I do to try to center myself. I do have a gratitude journal, which helps me to stay in the present. It helps me to be grateful for what I have. And instead of focusing on what I don't have and what I want. I think
do you write in that every day?
Absolutely. I don't skip a day.
Okay. Which takes a ton of discipline, I have to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, like I write in it once in the morning and I write in it once at night. So I do that. And some people might think it's a little woo-woo and it's a little odd, but I feel like it helps me. I think mindfulness practices are great too, and that might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but I think it's great to have, you know, a time like that for yourself, so that you can train the mind to be in like the here and now, instead of worrying about like what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. And by all means, this is not like a cure-all, but it definitely helps. And like when you stack one good day on top of another, like it helps you to get out of the bad situations, I think, or the tough situations, you know, if you will. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, one good day becomes 2 good days, becomes a good week, becomes 2 good weeks, you know, and yeah, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense, but I think it's a very difficult thing to do. And especially when you are in a rut or in the midst of a losing streak, to have the I guess, self-knowledge to recognize that something needs to change, and to then have the discipline to make the change and to stick to the change long enough to allow the change to do something.
Yeah. And trust me, like there are days where like I wake up and I'm writing in the gratitude journal and like I'm thinking like, gosh, I don't know what to write today. And it's tough, but you gotta push through it. And I also try to, and one thing I also try to do when I'm doing this is like, okay, maybe if I write this one thing I'm grateful for down, like when I write it down, I need to promise myself that I really do feel grateful for that in this moment. Right. And like maybe it's like something simple, like I'm grateful for my peanut butter and jelly toast this morning. And like, although I might wash that thought down the drain a little later, maybe at 3 p.m. I'm not that grateful for it anymore because that time has passed. But at least for that moment when I wrote it down, I'm truly grateful for it. And sometimes when you can be grateful for the 3 seconds that you are writing something down, you'll notice that when you stack one day on top of the other, those 3 seconds, it gets a little longer. You can carry it for a little bit longer. And I think that's definitely like how I stack one good day on top of the other. All of a sudden, instead of maybe you felt grateful for 5 seconds yesterday, and that's fine. And then tomorrow, maybe it'll be 10. And then all of a sudden, a week or so later, you're feeling grateful for like an hour, 2 straight hours, and then it starts to become a full day, and that's just how you build it. And it's definitely not something that happens overnight.
And do you feel like when you are feeling that gratitude, that translates into better performance on the court?
For sure. I think when you are grateful, you're not in a position to judge your current situation. You're too busy like looking at what you got and like totally accepting what you have, and you're not busy judging what you don't have or like why you're in this situation. And I think when you're in that type of mental space on the tennis court, you give yourself a chance to perform better, to play the way you want to play, versus if you're on the court and you're busy judging like what you aren't or what you need to improve. I think goals are great, but sometimes we get wrapped up in them a bit too much on like what we lack instead of, you know, seeing like what we have. But it's tough, especially in such a high achieving you know, in such a high achieving level, and people who want to be the best at what they do in the world, it's tough, and sometimes we jumble it.
Well, and I think it's interesting. I've talked to, so many coaches over the years, junior coaches and college coaches, and several of them have talked about dedicating a part of a lesson or a drill day or a practice session to working on strengths, because by strengthening strengths, you build confidence and you build that sense of well-being like you're talking about, as opposed to only focusing on working on the things that are lagging behind and need improving.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely do think we always need to strengthen our strengths, and it's definitely good for self-confidence and self-talk to know what you're good at. I think that's a huge part of your identity too, like knowing your strengths on the court, and being able to latch onto that when things get tough, or when you have certain doubts, and you can remind yourself why you're good.
Right. So as you prepare for the 2020 season, what are you taking from 2019 to help grow your game, grow your mental toughness, and yes, grow your ranking in 2020?
I think just staying in the present moment more often is going to be a goal for me. I think a lot of the bumpy times in 2019 were moments that are a bit too, where the focus was a bit too much like result oriented. And going into 2020, I think it's important to trust the work that you do. And hard work is unique. I think everybody works in a different way, and at this level of tennis, like you got your own unique way to work, and you got to believe in your work too, in how you do things. And I think when you can trust that work, and you get on the court, and you can take pride in the preparation that you put in order to compete that day, I think you can put yourself in a great place to compete, and you can put yourself in a place to play anybody, to compete and dance with anybody. And I think if I could just keep fostering that type of mentality, that every day is just a day to be better, and every day can be great as long as you commit to it, then I think we'll have better vibes this year. Or, well, maybe not better vibes, but hopefully I'll learn from my mistakes from last year.
Have you ever found yourself at a tournament feeling like you really hadn't done everything you needed to do to be ready?
Yes, actually, in the past, in the fall season, I felt that the preparation was great, the mind was in a good place, and where the tennis is at, the tennis is where it is, and the only thing left to do was to put the mind in the right place in order to go compete, and the results are going to, they will be what they will be.
But I mean, have you ever shown up at a tournament feeling like I really haven't done everything I needed to do?
Oh, I have not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, at the beginning of the year, it was like I felt like wanting to micromanage everything. It was like there was never enough practice. There were never enough balls hit, and that's probably where I was significantly flawed. I feel like I felt like I needed to do more in order to be a better player, and it was like there wasn't enough time to fit in all the work, and And yeah, like for the first part of the year, it was tough. It created a lot of anxiety and like unhappiness. And instead of going out there and competing and enjoying the competition, it was like there's a lot of focus on like, gosh, like I could have done this better, and I could have worked on this a bit more in practice. But in all honesty, that you only have so many calories to burn, and so much time in the day, and so many balls to hit before your arm falls off. So like not everything's going to be done. And yeah, I think a lot of times we underestimate, you know, how little time we have in a day. Or maybe I should say we overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, and we underestimate what we can accomplish in a long period of time. Mm-hmm. So I think a good way to think about it is everything doesn't need to be done today. But if you continue to work at little things day in, day out, maybe in 3 months or so, you know, the work will show. And it's always tough to trust that, because we always want everything here and now.
Right. We are creatures of immediate gratification.
Yeah, we want it here and now. And yeah, but I think trusting that if you put in the work and just show up every day and giving 100% all the time, that it will show. And that also goes with like working on your mindset every day too. I don't think it's just the stuff on the court. I think it's whatever's happening upstairs too. You got to work at that, and it's very easy if you kind of neglect it. Everything goes down the drain. The tennis goes down the drain if your mind is not in the right place.
Well, I mean, from listening to all of what you're saying today, to me, it sounds like you were really hard on yourself at the beginning of 2019, and
oh yeah, absolutely.
You learned to cut yourself some slack and to understand and accept some of your limitations, and to figure out a way to work within those limitations instead of being frustrated that you had the limitations. And that's a huge growth for somebody, especially somebody that is out there performing solo, 99.9% of the time. So, I mean, to me, listening to you talk about your 2019, I feel like you had an incredible growth year, and I'm so excited for your 2020 and to see what it brings for you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and trust me, it wasn't easy the whole way, but yeah, I think everyone's got to go through times like that, and I'm grateful for the year I had, because there's definitely a lot of growing pains, but I'm pretty sure it's going to make me, better as a player, a person, and just hopefully stronger for the future, and just help me with my professional career.
Do you feel like having athletes like Venus and Serena out there at such a quote old age for a professional athlete takes a little of the pressure off, that like, okay, I don't have to accomplish everything by the time I'm 28. I have another decade or even longer maybe before my career is finished?
I think so. It's incredibly inspiring to see, Venus and Serena still working at their craft. Obviously, they're Serena, greatest of all time, the best at what she does. It's tough to compare to her sometimes. Even like comparing to Venus, they're like the queens of the sport. But
the fact that they're still out there playing at such a high level at their age, it's not like your career's finished at a young age anymore.
Yeah, and it's inspiring on the men's side too, and it just, I think it it pushes the rest of the field to be better and to believe in the longevity of everyone's career. And it's great. It's great for the sport.
Yeah. Well, Danielle, as always, it is a pleasure talking with you and getting your wisdom and your insights. And I never cease to be amazed by how tuned in you are to what's happening in your brain, in your body, in your career. And I just always love hearing from you and reading your writings and all of that. So thanks so much for coming back on the podcast and talking with us about your challenging year and, what's in store for next year.
No, thanks so much. I appreciate that, Lisa. Always great to talk to you.
Well, good luck. Enjoy your family and your friends before you head down under, and can't wait to see what you do in 2020.
All right, will do. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. To my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast. For tennis parents, by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us and write a review on iTunes. For more information on navigating the junior and college tennis journey, please visit us online at ParentingAces.com. Thanks for tuning in and sharing us with your tennis community.